Hi, and welcome to part 2 of a Thriving Life webinar for ADD and autism. In this section, I like to go more in depth about what chemical exposure does to our children and give you some core examples of how it affects their behavior, and to give you information about what products you might have in your home right now that are contributing not only to symptoms of autism, but also allergies and asthma and a multitude of other symptoms that we have as an epidemic in this country. And I'm hoping that once you learn this information, you're going to be a friend and tell a friend. Help us spread the word. Help us to teach people that this is going on, because unless somebody tells you, you may not know about this. Okay, so let's get right to it. It might surprise you to learn that over 80,000 chemicals have been registered with the EPA in the last 30 years, and they're readily being used in our households. We assume as consumers that if it's on the grocery store shelves, that somebody is making sure they're safe for human use. That is just not the case. Fewer than 500 of these chemicals have ever been tested for their toxicity in humans, and none of them have been tested when combined with another chemical. So think about all the cleaners you have in your homes right now, all the personal care products. Do you think they're made with just one chemical, or do you think that there's a combination of chemicals that have never been tested for human safety? I'm very happy to report that in 2011, the EPA has now set new guidelines for chemical companies that they have to prove a brand new chemical is safe for human use before it's put on the market. But that's just for new chemicals. As always, there's loopholes to this new law as well. But are they forcing these companies to recall the products that have those 80,000 untested chemicals already in the marketplace? No. So what happens is that we are guinea pigs in this giant chemistry experiment. And how do you think we're faring? I don't think we're doing very well. And eliminating household toxins in our home is crucial, because as you learned in part 1 of this seminar, children with autism have weakened immune systems already. They have a very high sensitivity to smells and to these chemicals. So when we remove them from our homes and they don't have that toxic assault anymore, we've also then eliminated one of the barriers that stops them from being everything that they can possibly be. These chemicals that are all too familiar to us have an accumulative effect. They slowly build up in our fat cells. They slowly contribute to progression of disease in our body. They act like drugs in our body. They disrupt systems at very low levels of exposure, and they potentially cause harm in combination with each other. So if you think about one cleaner and then another you're adding, and then you're using another one for a different job, and you're exposing your family to all of these different chemicals unbeknownst to you, because honestly, if you're not told this information or you don't seek it out yourself, you're not going to learn it. So we have to be our own best advocates. We have to know and be educated as consumers. As chemical use has grown in our society, so have chemical-related diseases, including cancer, asthma, birth defects, developmental disabilities, autism, endometriosis, infertility, and even obesity. And there's mounting evidence linking the incidences of these diseases in part, at least in part, to environmental toxins. And unless you understand that there's outside factors forcing our body to respond differently, we're going to go the medical and medication route. And I came across this parenting magazine and it was very disturbing to me. It was a 2011 October edition, and one of the articles in there stated that a 2007 study found that 1 in 70 preschoolers were taking a psychiatric drug. 1 in 70. So it's my sincere hope that once you learn, once you become an educated consumer, that you will have the power. Because I believe that information is empowering. You'll have the power to make changes in your own home, and those changes will benefit everyone. So please don't give a company or a brand name your trust. Even if you've used it for years, even if you've seen advertising for years, they've not earned it. Okay, so the first toxic products I want to attack, and I am attacking these, are air fresheners. We have them in our homes, we have them in our cars, they're plugged in, they mist when we walk by, they're heat activated, they're in candles, they're all over the place. We are scent crazy. And this information is coming from the Cleveland Clinic because it's well-known information. But air fresheners commonly contain formaldehyde, which is linked to cause cancer. and it also causes eye, throat, skin, and lung irritation. The next thing air fresheners contain are petroleum distillates. These are irritating to the skin, eyes, and our respiratory tract. They may cause fatal pulmonary edema, and they're highly flammable. And that's another thing, when you're watching these commercials and they're walking around spraying the baby's room, per se, with air freshener or Lysol even, they're making that baby's room highly flammable. The fumes of air fresheners are associated with brain damage. Brain damage. Do we want this in our homes? There's got to be a better way than using air fresheners in our homes, in our cars. I mean, we're subjected to this stuff 24/7 in a lot of cases. Another thing, I went out and bought a can of Oust because I needed to use this as a visual aid for people so they really saw what was on the label. And the packaging's beautiful, but you know what? You're not going to read the back of the label when you're in the grocery store and you're in a hurry, or when you're at Walmart or Kmart or wherever you get your cleaners, because you just don't have time. So your brain is basically going to think back to where this product was familiar to you, and you're going to remember the commercial you saw with the lady spraying the mist of the Oust throughout her room and walking past the mist, and through that mist is some really pretty cartoon flowers coming out, and she's smelling and she's smiling. Okay, but what's actually on the label is something completely different. The first thing it says is, before spraying, remove birds. Okay, what are birds traditionally used for to indicate toxins in human air? Think coal mines and canaries. If the canary dies in the coal mine, they know the miners need to get the heck out of there. They want you to remove their birds from that house when you're spraying. Why? Because they know it's going to harm the birds. Then a little bit down further in the label, it's going to also say, before using product throughout your home, use in one room and wait 24 hours to ensure that no one has any physical reactions to the product. Does that sound like a safe product to you? Does that sound like something you'd want to have in your home? But these companies, their bottom line is the dollar that they're making off these products. It's not about the health of your family. It's how much they can make off of you buying these products. And they put that warning on the label, so they've done their due diligence. It's up to you to figure it out and to make wise purchases for your family. This is where it gets a little tricky, because in the past there was never a resource for us to find this information, but a consumer watchdog group demanded that the EPA put a database online. OSHA does that for people in the workplace. If you were exposed to chemicals in your workplace, OSHA demands that the warning labels be placed on those chemicals to let you know what the health hazards are. That's not true with common household cleaners that we're used to using, that our parents use, that we see in commercials every day, that we're comfortable buying, but we shouldn't be comfortable buying. So what Consumer Group did is they put something called the Household Chemical Database online, and I'm not actually sure how much longer this is going to be available to us, because they're cutting back so much in government spending, or they're trying to. This might be one of the first things that goes. So I think getting this information out now to you would be very, very helpful. So the resources I'm going to share with you have come from EPA, EPA.gov, and also the National Institute of Health. That's where that Consumer Household Database website is. And when you go on there, you're going to see something like this. And it's going to be a complete website. You can pull up all kinds of product names, any category you want. But what I did for this webinar is I used the quick search, and I plugged in 5 common chemicals that are in a lot of the cleaners and personal care products we have in our homes. And I wanted you to see the health hazards associated with each of those. Remember, this is just 5 out of the 80,000 that have been registered with the EPA. Okay, so here we go. The first one is called MEA, or monoethanolamine, and this chemical can cause liver damage. It's linked to asthma. It causes symptoms associated with central nervous system depression, and many of these chemicals have these. It causes these symptoms, and it causes the nervous system to become depressed, and also that goes with the brain as well. So think about it. It causes fatigue, impaired thinking, memory loss, inability to complete tasks, mood swings, and depression. It also can cause immediate allergic responses. And it's also irritating to the eyes, skin, and lungs. Let's find out what products we might have in our homes that contain this one chemical. 409, Windex, Spick and Span, Ivory, Pledge, Cheer, Tide, Gain. And the most surprising one to me was Dreft, because we assume as consumers that if it's marketed to babies or to children, that they're going to take greater care in making sure that product is safe. That's just not true. So make a note of all of the laundry products that are on this list. And if we're exposed to that 24 hours a day, because we're wearing it, we're sleeping on the sheets, we're exposed to that toxin 24 hours a day. And if it's creating these symptoms in our bodies, maybe it's something we need to get rid of. I mean, seriously, we need to really get rid of these cleaners in our homes and our exposure to them. You would think something as common as Windex has been around forever would be safer, but it's not. It isn't safe. I know a lot of people that have thought that they were allergic to cleaning because every Saturday after they cleaned, they'd be in bed with a headache. It's not till they switched out the cleaners and got rid of these toxins that they realized it was the toxins, it was the chemicals in these products that were creating that headache response. Next on the list is butyrosolosov. It's a probable carcinogen. It's probably going to cause cancer. It's linked to reproductive harm. It's irritating to the skin and the respiratory system. Other symptoms include fatigue, impaired thinking, memory loss, inability to complete tasks, depression, headaches, weakness, drowsiness, mood swings, personality changes. This is something we definitely want to get rid of in our home. So let's take a look at some of the products we might have that will force these behaviors upon us, and you're going to be surprised with some of them. Again, we have Glass Plus and 409, Windex, but one of the surprising ones are the Simple Green line, because consumers assume that if it says green or nature, it's going to be more natural and it's going to be more green, because the green is a hot button right now. Green is very marketable, but you know what? Companies know that, and they're going to use that to their advantage and to your disadvantage, because they're going to slap green or nature on the label, and you're going to assume that it's going to be healthier for your family, but in reality, it's not. My sister had a run-in with Simple Green products at her work, and the cleaning crew was there. Now, she doesn't use any of these cleaners in her own home. She uses the cleaners I'm going to talk to you about as a healthy alternative in her own home. But when she was exposed to these, she said she can physically feel herself become angry and irritable, and she can feel her personality actually change. And on the way home, she called her husband to warn him. It wasn't until she got outside and got some fresh air that she really felt herself come back. But what if your child can't communicate this to you? What if they are trapped in their body and they're not able to let you know that this stuff is hurting them and that they're feeling a change? And they might not even know that this is what's making it happen, but it might be in relation to when they're exposed to this. And you know, I know that you're just trying to do the right thing by your family, and you're just trying to keep your house clean, so you think that it's going to be more healthy for them if it's clean. But what if these cleaners are actually part of the problem? That's what I want to help make you aware of, that this can be a reality. And it's not just for autism, it's also for allergies and asthma and people with cancer, people with autoimmune diseases. Everybody should be aware of this information and get rid of these cleaners from their home. The next harmful chemicals are formaldehyde and 1,4-dioxane. Formaldehyde is a preservative, and it is added to the product, but 1,4-dioxane is a byproduct, so it's not going to appear on any label if they ever tell you what's on the label, which most don't, because they are called trade secrets, how the chemicals and how are combined to make the product as effective as it is. And I don't disagree that these products are effective in cleaning, but they're also effective in destroying our health. So if there's a healthy alternative out there, I want to know about it. So if we're talking about formaldehyde and 1,4-dioxane, both are known carcinogens. They're known to cause cancer, and they're banned in other countries in many products. And the symptoms include eye, nose, and throat irritation, wheezing and coughing, fatigue, skin rash, eczema, severe allergic reactions, and it also impairs immune function. And here are some products that were on the list that contain those two toxic chemicals. And I'm guessing that a lot of these are very familiar to you, like Soft Soap and Irish Spring and Ajax and Dynamo and Fab. The most surprising to me is first magic eraser that is on a lot of school supply lists, and think about every child that is then impaired. Their learning is impaired because of being subjected to that chemical. And then Baby Magic and Johnson baby shampoo. This has actually been in the news recently because Johnson & Johnson, the family company, and I say that with the utmost of sarcasm, they have committed to reducing the levels or eliminating the levels of formaldehyde and 1,4-dioxane in these products. But guess what? They've been making a formaldehyde and 1,4-dioxane free product to send to Europe because their government demands that. Ours doesn't. Does that mean that you shouldn't do the right thing anyways if you know that's harmful for people? And every baby comes home from the hospital with Johnson's baby shampoo and Baby Magic. What is that setting them up for? It's setting them up for a beginning of toxic exposure. Okay, the fourth chemical that's added to products is called lye. It may cause irritation to the respiratory tract. There's a lot of them that irritate the respiratory tract. Maybe that's why the incidence of asthma is on the rise in this country as well. It may cause liver and kidney damage, irritating to the skin and the eyes, may cause chronic skin irritation. So again, if your child has eczema, you want to keep them away from these products. It causes 75% of all caustic injury to kids under the age of 5. And they're in some surprising products. Here they are. Tilex, 409, we know they're pretty toxic. You can tell when you spray those things, they're pretty toxic. But what about oil of Olay, or Axe, or Shout, or Aveeno baby cream, or Pond's, or Murphy's oil soap? I know my family used to use that before we knew about the healthier alternative, Cascade. And here's another greenwashing example. These companies are using the words nature and natural and green to get you to use your buying power to buy these products. But if I'm going to spend my money on a product, I want to know that that company is all about my health, my family's health too. Not because they're forced to do so, but because they choose to do so. Because it's simply the right thing to do. And the last chemical I want to talk about, and you knew I was going to do this one because there's a lot of people that are bleachaholics out there. And I know you're thinking you're doing right by your family by making sure things are germ-free. But I'm more afraid of these chemicals, honestly, than I am of some little germ that my immune system, if it's working properly, can take care of. And anytime you clean with anything, you break that germ cell membrane and you destroy it. So there's no reason to overkill it. It's like using a machine gun when a fly swatter would have been just as effective. And this is not something that we want to take lightly in our homes because it causes damage to the respiratory tract. It causes throat irritation, even when exposed briefly and at low levels. It's linked to reactive airways dysfunction syndrome, and that will manifest as bronchitis or asthma. It's also corrosive and damaging to our cells on contact. So if you're using chlorine bleach in your laundry, your family is then sleeping on those sheets, they're wearing those clothes, and our skin is the largest organ in our body, so anything our skin comes in contact with is going to be absorbed. And that is something we definitely want to get rid of. One surprising resource for chlorine that we may not even realize is our automatic dishwasher detergents. Most of them contain chlorine bleach. So that means every single time you use your dishwasher, you're emitting chlorine gas into your home, you're eating off those plates, you're drinking out of those glasses, you're being exposed to chlorine every time you have anything to eat or drink. And disinfectants are very harmful to our children. There's a book out by a Dr. Doris Rapp. She's a brilliant woman, and she wrote a book called Is This Your Child? She wanted to make parents aware that there's environmental factors that might be causing their children to behave in a particular way. And she did a lot of tests on preschoolers and school-age children to see the reactions when they are exposed to common toxins in their environment. This one was of a 4-year-old that was exposed to a disinfectant aerosol spray. Before the test, he had normal activity. He was drawing. He was happy. During the test, whining, crying, tired. Look at his artwork there. And then after he received treatment with oxygen, he, just like my sister, got back to their old self and started acting the way they should be acting, not the way that chemical was forcing them to act. Here's another example of a boy named Ryan. He was asked to write his name. In normal activity, he did a pretty good job. As soon as he was exposed to that disinfectant aerosol, you can see it declining. At the peak of disinfectant reaction, he refused to write altogether. And then again, once they cleaned up the air in his environment, he was able to restore to normal activity. Think about how this might relate to how your child reacts. Because we really have to understand and realize that even though we may not have adverse reactions to these chemicals, our children are much more susceptible to them. Because they're not little adults. They breathe more air, they drink more water, they eat more food pound for pound than adults do. When they play, they crawl, they put things in their mouths, and that increases their exposure to potential pollutants. Their body systems are constantly developing, and they're less able to metabolize, detoxify, and excrete the pollutants. And as a result, they're more vulnerable to many environmental toxins. Okay, so far I hope this information has been of value to you, and I hope that you've learned things that you can take action upon to help every member in your family, not just the person with autism. In the last two parts of this webinar, parts 3 and 4, I'm going to help you figure out what brands to trust and what solutions there are. I'm not going to leave you hanging. There are solutions to help your child recover and repair the damage and become healthier. The first way, obviously, there's going to be 3 steps. The first step is going to be eliminate toxins. The second step is going to be identify possible allergens. And the third step is going to be to add essential and target nutrients. And all 3 of these steps are equally important in helping your child regain their health. Okay, so I'll meet you over in part 3 of a Thriving Life webinar for ADD and autism.